Look at the blood vessels around my eyes and my face. That's that a little too close up for you? That's from vomiting this morning at like 1:30 in the morning. So I got home with the computer yesterday. I had to do a bunch of stuff, and around 5 o'clock I was able to get it to sync to my old computer, and it started the transfer of data. And it took forever. I didn't know how long it would take, but it made me think, like, oh, that's why, like, if you ask Apple to do it, they want to keep your devices overnight. I guess that's why it takes that long. But here I am at 1:30 in the morning, my stomach's upset. I got food poisoning yesterday from the farmer's market when I ate lunch, when I went there to buy the computer. So 1:30 in the morning I get up and I'm just projectile vomiting into my toilet. 99.9% of it got into the toilet. I had to do a little cleanup this morning. But when I was up in between vomiting, I looked at the computers and they were still downloading information between each other. So got up today and yeah, it's working, but my email didn't work right away. So I had to call my server, get that password. I got that all to work, but that fouled up it working on my phone. So now I don't have email on my phone right now. So now I got to solve that whole problem. I'll tell you, what a can of friggin' worms. But looks good. I plugged the phone into the computer. It does not, it'll charge the phone, but I can't find where I can get the phone to talk to the computer to upload those clips. So we got to solve that. But everything else I've tried, all my bookmarks, everything was saved. My YouTube's working. So my next thing is to get to the AdSense and see if I can get that working. So I don't know why I'm even doing this video for you. I guess I just figured I'd give you this update, but also to explain why I look weird in my eyes. I guess you know, you have all those, the blood gets forced into your skull. It breaks those blood vessels. So yay for me. And I've got no work done. It's noon. I'm finally going to the shop to get something done here. Got to dig myself out of this hole. So it's a dado to hold the shelf. This is an upper cabinet. Now I got to do another pass deeper. It's going to be a 1/2 inch dado. Alright, so there you see it. I don't always do it like this, but it makes sense. And basically the setup on the machine is, you know, you're going to set your bit up about halfway of the depth that you want. And you want to take a straight edge, you know, a ruler, something like this, and measure from the edge of your bit to the edge of your base. And that's the dimension from this point here to that. Same thing here. You put those two there. I mean, you saw how easy it was. Pretty simple. The hardest part, man, is just setting all this stuff up right. and making sure it's all flat and that this is even here, and then you're golden. So 1/2 inch dado is more than enough support. I think what I'll do is I'll show you what's happening here right quick. Okay, so things changed a little bit. The layout changed, and I want you guys to remember this is 66 inches across. That's a huge span without any support. So we're going to put some support in, and what we're going to do is on this shelf, and these 2 shelves, we're going to put uprights. But we're going to do something funky here. My client is going to paint this, and I know people are going to freak out over the color choice, but it's a woman. She's going to paint this pale pink. And then I'm going to use 3 or 4 different species of wood, and we're going to clear coat those. And so we're going to offset them. So there'll be an upright right around here somewhere. We're going to get a little funky with it, you know. And these things are not the full depth of the shelf either. There'll be one right there. I'm going to put one over here, and it's going to be asymmetric. Now, the reason for the spacing is I don't need it dead center. We'll probably pull these in a little bit more. But if this is screwed in here and this is screwed in here, and then these 2 are screwed together, these can't go anywhere. This shelf here is resting upon a base. This 8-inch shelf, which is, I just put the number there. Clearly, this isn't the scale. These 2 are going to be taller. This is smaller. I don't need a support here for this. And unless something heavy gets placed here, but I don't think that's going to happen. Worst case scenario, I make a little 8-inch piece, we pop that in there. There's going to be 14 inches between the top of this and the bottom of that. And then on this one here, we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to pull a piece down here. And we're going to put another one over here. And this is probably going to be the approximate pattern of these. My hand might be blocking you. So something like that there. And then with these screwed together, this can't go anywhere, right? Again, none of this is to scale, but I think you get the gist of it. Now, I'm not doing the sliding dovetail keys. The main reason for that is I brought everything with me that I would need to do this to Arizona with my extra tools. So I'm setting up a shop there for when I'm working on the house. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something that's even stronger. I'm going to screw into each of these, and then I'm going to just use round wood plugs that we're never going to see because she's going to paint the whole thing. And that's going to be the same way I attach this. You know, it's just going to have little wood plugs in here. Wow. You forget how not straight of a line that you got on here, you know. So there'll be some little wood plugs here. But again, you won't see them. You guys should be able to get the gist of this here. So I know this isn't the best drawing, but it doesn't need to be. It just needs to be enough for me to know what the heck I'm doing. So I'm about to put down the next, this is the sides. These are the sideboards for the upper cabinet. And next I got to clean all this off and put the sideboards down for the lower cabinet. And that's going to require 2 dados. And then I'm ready to sand these parts out and then put them together. Alright, so I realize there's a weird way to start this video. Talking about vomiting. I'm really out of it, man. And I would like to be home not doing this, but, you know, man, you got to do what you got to do. You got to get the work done, so that's why I'm here. I figured I'll talk this out a little bit with you. I've mentioned this before. You have to be precise. Your machines have to be calibrated right. That table saw has to cut 90 degrees. You have to know how to use your joiner and your planer. These pieces all have to be milled exactly the same thickness. I got my, it's probably not the best way to cut these, but I've got the miter saw here, which I tipped to 45 degrees, and every single cut, I checked it. I checked it with the square to make sure it was at 45 degrees. I checked this here to make sure that that was pretty close to square, understanding that this might not be super perfect, but I know that that won't matter when the miter's glued together. There's a system for gluing this system together that's going to be kind of different. This is not your typical construction. I know a lot of guys, they're looking at this like, why is he doing this? There's reasons for it. As difficult as it might seem to some people, it's actually easier if you take the time to do things this way versus if I did plywood and there were plywood shelves, then I have to put edges on everything, thick enough so that that stuff doesn't sag. And what happens is that becomes so thick, everything grows. And then the thickness of that also reduces the height of your shelving. This maximizes my shelving height. And with mitering it at the corners, I've got no end grain to deal with. So it'll be painted and it'll look beautiful. Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and lay this out now. I've got 2 shelves now that are going to be 12 inches between each other, and then the top shelf's going to be whatever. I'm laying this out at the 1 inch line, and I'm adding an inch here. So I'm going to pick 13 inches right here. All right, I'm going to do the same thing right here. And because I don't want to be in this guesstimating situation, after I put this mark here, I'm going to use my square. I'm just going to put a line on each side here. I was a little off on that one. I'm tired, man. I guess it just wants to be off. And then I'm going to take this piece that I cut off, because all these pieces, another benefit of everything was milled exactly the same thickness. I could take any of these scraps, I know it's the same thickness. So I'm going to lay this up against my line. That's my dado width. A lot of you guys are like, duh. Well, yeah. Same thing here. Now, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to measure up from here 13 inches, and whatever's left there is going to be our top shelf. When I go to make my marks for these, what you just saw me do, I'm going to measure from that line out 2 5/8 of an inch, 2 5/8 of an inch, and then I'll clamp those down to those marks. And then I'll run through with the router making those dados, just like you've just seen. All right. Oh man, have I said that I love the New York dolls before? They're better now. Mystery girls. They're better now than they were then. Okay. So these are done. My next step here is going to be to sand all these parts, and then, well, I still have to cut the shelves. So now, here's a key. Precision. If you've done everything else I've already mentioned, now it's basic math, right? So if you want your stuff to go together and be pretty square and have your sides be nice and vertical, those shelves that fit into these dados, they've got to be the exact right length. Now I know that my outside corners, the width of these pieces are going to be 66 inches. All I've got to do now is double this measurement. So I can take this up like this here, measure this right here, and subtract that from 66 inches. And as long as I've cut that precisely, and those cuts are at 90 degrees, then when I put this together, everything should fit together, and these side parts shouldn't bow in or bow out. It should be exactly correct. I will obviously do a dry fit with this. One of the neat things about this system is course, I don't have a table big enough. This is not a great wood shop. It's just convenient. If I had a giant work table, I could lay this like this and put these parts together. And the really neat thing with this is all you have to do, I'll show you, don't go anywhere. I'll just let the camera stay rolling because it's only a couple seconds away. So when you go to put it together, you can basically lay these things out and put tape on them and then just fold it together. So you do that on all four corners. Now on this, it's a little bit different. I've got to put these middle shelves in first and then apply the ends. But I can basically do the same sort of system. It'll hold it together. I might not need screws in this. I may decide just to drive some super long nails in there with glue and it'll hold fine. We'll see. I might do a couple screws, screw in each corner or something, just for my own peace of mind. The other thing I wanted to point out, you see a little tear out right here? That's the back side. So when if you're going to do this system, and this is, again, if you know what you're doing, you're all going durr. You want to put the knife side, that's the back side. You want to put the front edge to front edge. And make sure that's nice and tight. Obviously it will be, because when you go ahead and you put this piece here on, this is spring loaded. So when you cinch this down, it's going to pull these together even tighter. And the beauty of that is when you run your router through, you get no tear out on that edge. So just something to think about. And in the end, you end up with a solid wood piece that is held together with joinery and glue for the most part. Nothing crazy here. I could have went nuts, but I'm not really charging for it. But you could get crazy. I could have made these sliding dovetails. I could have done box joints. I could have done the system I wanted to do initially. There's a lot of things I could do with this. But, I'm trying to keep it within budget and all that, and give my friend a good deal. You know how that is. So, which is an interesting point I could talk about briefly here. A table's a table, right? But I could make a table, countless ways, 50 different ways. And then there's the material, and there's milling the material, all these things. So every detail that you choose to do adds time, and then certain materials are harder to work with than others. Like poplar is pretty good. The only issue with poplar is, and this is kiln dried, so it's not supposed to move too much, but every once in a while you get some kooky squirrely board that just ruins your day. If you can swing it, it's always probably a good move to buy an extra board or two per project. Worst case scenario, you end up with it in your shop and you can use it for something else. You could pass that savings along to a client down the road. Eventually you can have enough of that stuff where you can make something for yourself. But it's just good practice. In this case, I selected these boards. It was a brand new bundle of wood there. They were pretty much all at the top, and I got real lucky with picking these. Your squirreliest board is going to dictate the overall finished thickness of all your boards. So something else to keep in mind. And I'm sure I look like hell with this face thing here. But that's it. I don't think I'm going to make this a crazy video here. I'm really wore out. And I'm just tired. So the last couple days. So I think what I'm going to do is clean this mess up and then possibly go home. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. Let's see how I feel. I might go ahead and test cut, or I can't test cut. Once they're cut, they're cut. So I might cut these shelves and do a dry fit so I know for sure. Doesn't really matter. That's not going to take very long. But then the next thing is sanding all the insides. So that's both sides of each shelf, top and bottom of each shelf, and then the insides of these. And then once everything gets put together, if I use nails or screws or whatever, however I plug those and fill it or whatever I do, that then I can sand the outside. Then I make a determination on the corners. We talked about doing a couple different things. I've got some scrap. I considered on this outside corner doing like a heavy radius just on the outside perimeter facing it. Just something a little bit funky, a little hinting at a little mid-century modern there, like Haywood Wakefield, that sort of thing. And my client liked that idea. If I do that, I'm going to keep the top and bottom corners, right? There's going to be a top edge here, top board here. I'm going to keep this square but I'm going to knock that corner down a little bit. You know, probably have like 1/8 of an inch or less radius, and I'm just going to do by hand. But the outside corner, I'm considering doing like a 3/4 inch or more fat radius. That would limit to a certain extent what you could put on the top shelf. But, you know, who's going to want to bring something totally to the very edge of that anyhow? That doesn't really make sense. So that's where we're at, and I hope you guys got a kick out of this. Somebody mentioned the idea of doing a full-length video on this build. I'm not doing that, only because I don't save these clips. They take up too much space in my phone. I did plug the phone into the new computer. It doesn't automatically read it. I've got to, I guess I just looked at it on my phone a little while ago when I was taking a break, and I think I have to go to photos on the computer and then look there to see if it's reading that it's plugged in. So when I go home, I'm going to check that out. There's going to be a way for me to do this, and hopefully this will all work out. So I know all my videos have more than just the subject matter in them. I'm talking about the computer. I'm talking about getting sick last night, and in a video where I'm showing you the progress on the shelving systems thing here. It's just how it is, man. So that's it. You guys have a good day, and I'll keep these short ones coming out for now. I do appreciate you watching. I know I say it all the time, but I do truly mean it. I'm shocked. I'm actually, like yesterday's video, I looked at it this morning. I think it had like 700 views or something, and I'm thinking, why? Why? I don't know. I watched the, I'm going to recommend this. It's some observations here. You're getting a little bit of everything here today. The Tom Brady roast. You guys see that on Netflix? I watched half of it the other day, and then I watched the second half last night. It was pretty funny. But it was obvious that, especially for the athletes, I mean, a lot of that was written for them. You know, they're reading off a teleprompter. But I thought that was a pretty fun thing overall. Kevin Hart is weird to me. Like, there's something about him I don't like. I don't know. I want to like him. I think he's a better actor than he is comedian. I think, you know, why does anybody even care, right? You're like, why are you even talking about these people? I just watched it. I thought it was interesting. Something about his personality, kind of, I don't know, the way he was doing his thing there. Didn't like it too much. Wasn't upset about it. I just thought it could have been better. They should have got Dave Chappelle. Anyhow, that's it. What's with this Andrew Schultz guy? I mean, he was funny on that roast. I watched a podcast. I'm going to recommend. Here's a recommendation. I think it's Bill Carson, and Andrew Schultz. Watch that interview. I posted it on my Facebook page the other day. And this guy, I mean, he's read just thousands of ancient texts and old books and all this, and he's got a pretty good grasp on these stories that come from the Vedic texts that talk about how we came about, why we're here, the human race, all of it, and how religion's like the last thing that we had. Like, there's so many other stories, and so much of it is repeated in religious texts. I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by these people and that are on the planet. You know, basically 100 families run the world. And I've mentioned this book before. It's the you guys are here for the woodworking. You're like, shut up, man. Our Occulted History by Jim Marrs. I recommend that. And when you listen to this Bill Carson guy, and then you watch a show like that roast, and you look at these people, somebody like Tom Brady, and these people exist. Brad Pitt, you know, there's people on the planet that are like walking. I'm not saying they're gods to be worshipped. It's not what I'm saying. But when you look at some of these people on the planet, they've got everything, and you got to wonder about that. Like, you know, and it's like the Dalai Lama idea, right? This guy gets reincarnated time and again. And in all the ancient texts, when it comes to this discussion, and what people said about beings from other worlds, that the human body is a vessel, you know, and I've said this before. This is something I came up with on my own before I ever read any of this or heard about it. I've always believed that. The body is just housing your soul. That's what you truly are. You never really die. You keep coming back here. You go to other places, whatever. So when I look at some of these people, I feel like it's obvious. I feel like I look at them and I'm like, oh yeah, this person is on a different level, different plane. And I'm not jealous. It's not about jealousy or anything like that. I'm just fascinated by it. To me, it seems like all that makes sense. So the Bill Carson, I've looked at some of his stuff before, other interviews, and I've read the comments. And people will get on his case when he's quoting like Deuteronomy or something, or any of the books from the Bible, because Bible people, everything with them is literal, and but there's different versions of these stories, you know, and the New Testament's different from the Old Testament, and all of it comes from these ancient texts that are different, and you know, it's the translations, everything else. It's just I'm fascinated by all of this, and I think that as grandiose as these stories sound, to me it makes more sense than what we've been told what we've been led to believe over the last 2,000 years. When I work with this stuff and I work with this machine and I think about ancient Egypt and these buildings, and I listen to this Bill Carson guy talk about how electricity worked then, and I listen to engineers who've looked at these places and they're saying, no, they had to use machines with this, and they can show you tool marks, and I use this and I can see it right here. I can see how the router leaves these little marks, and it's very similar to what I see when they show you this stuff in these ancient stones. I mean, all stone is ancient, but you know what I'm saying. These megalithic structures, a lot of it is made of granite and andesite and these other super hard stones, and if you know what you're looking at and you can see these machine marks, you've got to ask yourself, you know. I think that we're getting closer to more people accepting these ideas and theories. What does that mean? Well, it means that it's going to be easier for you to make a choice about whether or not you want to participate with the rest of the masses who are being led down a certain path of being controlled. And I think that that's the end goal for whoever's running the show here. I'm going to choose not to participate in it. I think, you know, with the van life stuff, it exposes me to that mindset of the nomad thing with people. And a lot of these people have this same mindset. They don't want to participate in this system that's being created that they had nothing to say about. I think about it all the time with children who were born into this mess, and or children who were born into families that are really strict with religion, and they've got no choice, so they're going to be brought up to be brainwashed to believe a certain system, hate certain people or whatever, or believe they're extra special. All this nonsense that's pumped into them from birth that they have no control over. I think that that's just sinister and evil. I'm fascinated by all of it. And for me, this is more of an interesting thing to think about and work out in my mind than silly gossip with celebrities and all that other stuff. The only reason I brought up this is like a Sunday night chat. The only reason I brought up the roast was because I'm looking at these people and this is what I'm seeing. I'm thinking about, I'm like, this person probably, you know, comes from there's something more going on there. I'm just fascinated by all of it. And I'm really tired, so I'm kind of punchy. Anyhow, there's a lot here to digest with the system here and what I was just talking about. Maybe that's why you're watching. What's this guy going to say next? I don't know. There's going to be some more on the, I got to do the one that got away video. I've been having a hard time with it because there's so many, and I don't want it to, you know, I don't know. I will get into that. You'll see in the next one. Have a good day. Be kind to one another, okay? Be the best version of yourself. Do something nice for somebody else, and I'll catch you on the next one. Have a great day.